So much to get to from week 2 around the NFL, the chaos that is the National Football League. After 2 weeks, we've got upsets, we've got statement games early in the season, some surprising 2-0s, and maybe even more surprising 0-2s, all that and more coming up on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look at the NFL on the field and in the front office with elite breakdowns to next-level analysis and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks, everybody, for making this your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We love our everydayers, and hello to all the new listeners. Make sure you are subscribed up on YouTube and everywhere you listen to your podcast. Today's episode of P&W is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first ticket purchase. All right. So much to get to. I think we've got to start with the team that has been the most impressive in the NFL through 2 weeks of the season, Matt, and that is the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah.
Look, week 1, you beat up on a team that looks pretty rough. Okay, that's one thing. But then you go to Dallas on the road and put up 44 points on the Cowboys. The Saints now 2-0 after a 44-19 win. They scored 5 touchdowns in the first half against the Cowboys. 44-19, Cowboys fall to 1-1.
Yeah, and it wasn't even Dallas turning the ball over a million times or
like a muffed punt, and you get the ball at the 5-yard line.
Right. It was just beating them bad. I mean, they had 37 points or 35 points at the half. And I happened to notice this because the Chargers and Steelers who play next week are 2 of them. But there was 5 teams yesterday that won by threw less than 20 passes. And this was one of them. I mean, they scored 44 points, and Derek Carr, who's playing great, attempted 16 passes. I mean, it's really something. I didn't see this coming. I was a little shocked by the Panthers, week 1 blowout, but this has my full attention, to say the least. And speaking of Panthers, this could be a little remedy for them. Maybe this is all it is. I sent a tweet out about an hour ago that the Saints were last in the league last year in the use of play action. This year, you're first. So maybe that's all it takes. Like if Carolina just does play action, they'll win the rest of their games.
They're certainly dressing it up a little more. I think that's something.
It is a good
offense. Passing yards are down, and it's kind of been a trend. And teams are going slower. And I think it's because almost every offensive coordinator now in the NFL, every team in the league uses so much motion and are dressing things up and play action that it just takes longer to get a playoff. And so I think just the amount of plays being run is down, not just passing. And I think that's the thing that, it takes a little bit more to have everybody on board than maybe running the ball does. And so I think that maybe the passing games will play a little bit of catch up throughout the rest of the year. But, I mean, Kamara going for 3 touchdowns and 1 through the air as well, right? He had 4 touchdowns on the day. There was a couple of interceptions thrown by Dak Prescott in this one as well. But, the Saints are the team that's made the biggest statement, I think, so far this season. And Derek Carr, super efficient. But, man, when you're running the ball like that, you don't even need to be chucking the ball all over the place either.
Yeah, 2 more notes is I really thought the Saints O-line might be in contention for worst in the league, and they held up really, really well, especially in the run game, but they needed to protect all that well, but they were strong, and that's really encouraging. And back, you were saying about, people running less plays. I wonder if defenses have overcorrected with this too high, don't let any big play stuff happen, and just getting gouged on the ground,
right.
It might need to switch things up a little bit across the league.
Yeah. Well, and it's one thing to be like, all right, we don't want to get beat deep, but if a team's marching down the field on you endlessly, you've got to do something about it.
And you're just getting blown back play after play. I mean, your front seven's just getting double teamed and duo, right.
You look at the draft, defensive linemen getting smaller and lighter, linebackers getting smaller and lighter. So you're making it easier for those offensive lines to push you around. And so, there's definitely a zag going on from a zig that had happened for multiple years in a row. And so we'll see how that continues into the season.
It was also a draft that brought a ton of really good O linemen for the first time in a while too.
That's very true. And one of them on the Saints, left tackle Talise Frog, and he's looked awesome. He was out there getting to the second level, blocking guys. Doesn't necessarily, it doesn't look like a Hall of Famer yet. And it takes offensive linemen a little while, but just to be a rookie, even if you're a first rounder, to be a rookie, and look, he switched from the right side to the left side too. So
all of them did it.
To be a rookie and start your first 2 games in the NFL, your rookie season, like that is not easy to do. So,
no.
And by the way, the Buccaneers have one as well on their offensive line. The Bucs have started 2-0, and they just knocked off the Detroit Lions 20-16 in week 2, man.
I think we kind of have to lump Baker and Carr together. I mean, Baker wasn't as good in this one as he was in week 1, and they both played really bad teams in week 1, but they both are earning their money and more. I don't want to say they're journeymen, but no one's going to put them in tier 1. No one's going to put them in tier 4, but they're good quality players that you can win with, and they have quite a bit around them. Chris Godwin, I mean, having a resurgent season, and the Tampa still doesn't run the ball great, but they distribute things, and they have some star power. They lost Vita Vea in this game, and it didn't hurt them all that bad. But how about Aiden Hutchinson? 4.5 sacks after what he did in week 1, too. Like, this guy might be defensive player of the year, even in a losing effort. And frankly, I'm not the slightest bit worried about the Lions. I
think it was four of those sacks in the first half, wasn't it? He was going crazy. We were on Derek Thomas watch, who set the record with 7 sacks in 1990. But it's a good sign for the Bucs that they can win games in different ways. That Baker Mayfield threw 4 touchdown passes last week, and this one they had to grind it out. 20-16 win over the Detroit Lions. So great sign for the Bucs, great sign for the Saints, and just as we predicted going into the season, the best division in the NFL is the NFC South, right?
Obviously, if it wasn't for the Panthers, it wouldn't even be close. They're a powerhouse, right? Well, and Atlanta's going to win by 30 tonight too.
You said you're not worried about the Lions.
Not really.
They weren't impressive in week 1, and guess what? They played a Rams team that just got walked completely out of the stadium by the Cardinals, 41-10. The Rams are 0-2 now. They lost Cooper Kupp in this game. I don't have the MRI results on what that's going to be for him, but they're down to wide receiver.
They ruled him out immediately.
Yeah, right. And so that doesn't look good. Kyler Murray and that Cardinals offense looking good. And guess what? The defense did a number on the Rams as well. So maybe we were completely wrong about the Cardinals, and they are ready for prime time now. And the Los Angeles Rams are in trouble. And look, I mean, if you ask me who played better first 2 weeks of the season, the Cardinals or the Lions, I would say by far it's the Cardinals.
It's a great point. I mean, now that we have a true another data point, you look at the Cardinals and be like, man, they almost beat the Bills in Buffalo and then destroyed the Rams. Where the Lions, I'm like, that's a great win over the Rams. Rams are a playoff team. Maybe everyone's going to do that to the Rams, and the Lions should have beat them worse. So that is a good point. Maybe I'm just have too much preseason bias of Cardinals versus Lions, but I'm not worried about Marvin Harrison's speed anymore. I'm not any of that nonsense. I am worried about the Rams, though. I think they're in huge problem.
And Marvin Harrison came out immediately. It was 2 touchdowns in the first quarter, right? And he ended up with 130 yards, and they didn't need to do a lot else there with him. And then, they just kind of leaned on him the rest of that game. James Conner, 122 yards on the ground. Look, they've got a quarterback. Kyler Murray is a good quarterback. And, you were touting him as a fantasy guy this year, and that shouldn't be surprising what he can do with his arm and his legs, and super talented. They've built a good offensive line for the Cardinals. They've got 2 deep at the running back position, and they just drafted potentially a star wide receiver to go with some workman-like players as well at the position. The offense is ready. It is ready to go. As long as the defense can keep those things close and do like they did with the Rams here, the Cardinals can make some noise.
I think so too. I don't know that they're a contender, but if they end up in the wild card, I can understand that. And that's great progress from when this coaching staff took over. They were hideous.
Well, hey, it's maybe a little early to start this kind of talk, but the Cardinals are tied with the San Francisco 49ers for second place behind the Seattle Seahawks right now in the NFC West. The Seahawks narrowly got by the Patriots. I want to talk about that upset, the Vikings beating the 49ers, and a whole lot more from week 2 in the NFL next. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active users. Why is it #1? Well, because Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS. And unlike other apps, on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. There's no sharks in the pool. You're not playing against, thousands of other players. You just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch those winnings roll in. And by the way, and you missed it for week 1 and 2 if you haven't gotten in, but there's an opportunity for you to make some very easy money because all you need is 1 Caleb Williams passing yard, and that gets you 1 win on Prize Picks every week in September. So just get more on 1 Caleb Williams passing yard, and Caleb Williams hasn't gotten a lot more than that, but he's gotten 1
right.
yard every week, and you already have an auto win. And Prize Picks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money as quick as 15 minutes. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNFL on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even have to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. This episode is also brought to you by DoorDash. Football is finally back, which means it's time to order your favorite game day foods and snacks and drinks, and DoorDash without missing a single play. You getting ready for that Monday Night Football watch party? Well, you can get all the wings, all the beer, all look, you need batteries from your remote. Like, you can get groceries. You can get anything you need. Dessert. Make sure you get that spread right. And maybe you walk into somebody else's Monday Night Football watch party and you realize, this spread is not quite where it needs to be. DoorDash it real quick, and you have it at your door and ready to go and have that football watch party come correct. Use code LOCKEDONFALL to get 50% off up to $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first DoorDash order. Limited time offer, terms apply. Promo is not valid for orders containing alcohol. Again, that code is LOCKEDFALL24 on DoorDash. Your game day greatness, your door to more. Download the DoorDash app now and order your game day favorites. Must be 21 and over to order alcohol. Drink responsibly. Alcohol available only in select markets. Okay, Matt, let's continue on here on the schedule for week 2. And I think this is a pretty big one for the Minnesota Vikings, who have looked good twice in a row and are now 2-0 on the season, including knocking off the NFC champion San Francisco 49ers 23-17. And the 49ers needed some big turnovers and some big plays to even keep it close. Like this game wasn't this close. The Vikings played much better football than the 49ers did. And don't look now, but former 49er Sam Darnold holding up okay in Minnesota.
Yeah, he's looked really good, don't you think? I mean, I'm sure you are on top of this game more than me, but I got the same impression that Minnesota deserved to win. They were the better team. Their quarterback probably played a little bit better. Justin Jefferson got hurt, and it didn't slow him down. Not having McCaffrey isn't an excuse, but it seems like he would have been useful. Not that Mason was bad or anything of those along those lines, but Minnesota is like the perfect example of, is this team for real? Is Darnold good enough? Could he be the Carr Mayfield version we were just talking about, with really good coaching and aggressive defensive coordinator that's hard to play against?
Yeah, well, people got mad because last week I called Darnold's interception because he was getting hit as he threw. I called it his signature interception. He did have his signature interception in this game, threw it to Fred Warner, who's a great player, made a great play on it. But it still didn't matter because that was one of the only mistakes he made in this game. He found Justin Jefferson on a huge 97-yard touchdown after they had a goal line stand against the 49ers. I mean, maybe one of the biggest flips for any team in any game on the schedule. And the 49ers were, playing comeback ball from then on. And, I don't think Christian McCaffrey would have helped. Jordan,
it's not the reason.
4 times for 100 yards, had a touchdown, 5 yards a carry. The 49ers were just a little bit off. And I think a lot of it, the thing I came away with most impressed, and Sam Darnold was good, was the coaching on both sides. I think Kevin O'Connell's really good, and Brian Flores. We on Lockdown 49ers, we do game balls every week, and we rarely give a game ball to the opposition. It's a 49ers focused show. We gave a game ball to Brian Flores. And even after the game, and I didn't even see this at the time, but I saw it this morning. After the game, everyone's dapping each other up. Brock Purdy whispers to Brian Flores, crazy scheme, man, to him. So the 49ers.
It's hard to play against.
Right. They screwed up some communication, and the Vikings are a tough team to play against, especially in their house. Brian Flores did a great job. He's done a great job in the past against Kyle Shanahan as well, too. So, yeah. And so the Vikings, I still have some questions personnel-wise, but they're coached up well, and as long as you don't have a problem at quarterback, which they don't.
They don't, yeah.
And you got players like Justin Jefferson, and their offensive line is good. And I guess it's a similar conversation to what we were talking about with the Arizona Cardinals, except for, they've, I think, got a little bit more going for them on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, maybe Darnold's not as dynamic as Kyler, but you're right. I mean, they got a lot of pieces in place, and they're getting the most out of them.
And that means the Seattle Seahawks are currently leading the NFC West at 2-0 after a narrow 20-20 win over the New England Patriots. Are the Patriots going to continue their long string of games where they either lose or win by 3 points? Because it just feels like that's the way this season is going to go for the New England Patriots. They came out on the losing end of this one, 23-20, but again, played really well and have been a better team than I expected coming into this 2024 season.
I will say some of these lesser talented teams, and this is held true early in the season, the last couple years, that if you can run the ball 36 times for 185 yards, which New England did, and limit Seattle to 19 rushes for 46 yards, you're going to be in it. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to at least keep it close and shorten the game and all that. I always use the stupid example of if Stephen Curry and I had a 3-point contest and it was first one to 100, I would lose 100% of the time. But if it was first one to 1,
right,
I might win once. You know what I mean? Yep. Like, just shorten the game.
That's a great point. That's what the Patriots have been doing. And it was overtime win, by the way, for the Seattle Seahawks. And they leaned on the passing game, not one, but two receivers with double-digit receptions. You had DK Metcalf had the long touchdown catch, 10 catches for 129. And the best game so far, statistically, at least for Jackson Smith-Njigba's young career, had 12 catches in this game for the Seattle Seahawks. It was peppered a lot. And I think that's something the Seattle Seahawks should continue to do with their second-year wide receiver, not just because he's on my fantasy team. 12 for 117 for Jackson Smith-Njigba in this game. And that was with Zach Charbonnet being the main back. And the running game really wasn't there for the Seattle Seahawks in this one.
No, I think that's the encouraging thing. Is pretty clear that JSN's now in the top two. You know, Lockett's the 3. He's had a great career, but that's what he's suited to be. And you talk about, feeding your big dogs, 30 targets between Metcalf and JSN. That'll work. Give Hunter Henry some credit, too. He actually was a big force in this game.
We're going to make grand proclamations about all of these teams on tomorrow's show. Who are we wrong about? Who are we right about? And in some teams, I think you can make after 2 weeks. It's still a small sample after 2 weeks, but I think some teams you can really declare some things about. Some teams it's a little bit more difficult. Disappointing so far for the Indianapolis Colts, who lost to a Malik Willis-led Packers team, Matt. And the Packers Malik Willis was fine, and he didn't ruin the game for them, but they just ran all over the Colts in this game. 16-10 win for the Packers, and they improved to 1-1. And maybe Jordan Love's closer to being available, which is why the Packers didn't do anything at quarterback. And if just winning one of those Malik Willis games, the first one, and who knows, maybe Jordan Love comes back next week. I don't know. It becomes, even if the Packers lose next week and then Jordan Love comes back, you're in pretty good shape if you're the Packers. And so a good showing for the Pack to be able to go win this game with their backup quarterback and Anthony Richardson, 3 interceptions. That they just have not gotten things going there in Indianapolis in the first 2 weeks. Have looked pretty bad.
Yeah, and again, I think the Packers are also a very well-coached team. LaFleur is one of those guys that knows how to win in this league now, and that's earned. Again, you win the turnover battle 3-1. Richardson has trouble completing passes. I mean, he misses a lot of layups, a lot, to use another basketball analogy. And this stat is something you don't see hardly at all through the course of an NFL season. The Packers had more than 40 minutes of time of possession. I mean, that's unbelievable this early in the season in particular. Just feeding Josh Jacobs 32 times. Just keep giving it to him over and over.
Awesome game plan, and obviously well executed by the Packers to go out there, not put it on Malik Willis, and go run the heck out of the ball. And they did. They ran it down the Colts' throat. And if you ask Matt LaFleur on Saturday, he's like, okay, ideally, how's this game go? He's like, well, it's a grinded out win. There's it's a low scoring game, and we run the ball 50 times and have it for 40 minutes of the clock. And that's exactly what they did.
Like if you asked them, if I told you Malik Willis was 12 for 14 in this game, would you take it? You'd be like, yeah, we probably ran the ball really well.
Right, exactly. 14 pass attempts, that's what I want to see.
And he completed most of them,
The Tennessee Titans are 0-2 now, Matt. They fall to the New York Jets, who rebound after a week 1 loss, 24-17 in the final here.
Yeah, I'll be honest. There's a couple games I'm still scrambling on. I don't know a ton of what went down in this one, but it seems like a very encouraging turn of events for Rodgers and this team. And I think it's officially time to worry about the Titans, and might be officially time to worry about Will Levis. And I don't know if the O-line is particularly fixed, and Tajee Spears gets hurt in this game. So not a lot of good mojo in Tennessee right now.
No, not good mojo at all. And that's the big takeaway from this game is Will Levis and not looking great. And his own coach is yelling at him on the sideline, what the hell was that? After a play, and when you see the play, you realize why he would be yelling that at his own quarterback. And so too many mistakes, too many chances that are unnecessary that Will Levis has taken out there. It is not looking good to start year 2 for Will Levis and the Titans offense, along with the other things you mentioned there. So that's difficult for the Titans. Yeah. And Will Levis officially, I think you're on, could he potentially be benched? Watch. That's how bad it's looked for Willis.
It's funny, on our Steelers show, which obviously everything ties back to Steelers, Williamson. In the offseason, my partner and I said, I bet Mason Rudolph's a starting quarterback by week 6 or 8 here. Because he just does what coaches want you to do. He's not special. Levis makes people crazy. He's had bad decisions.
And obviously a big win for the Jets to look decent and to get back to 500 there in their quest to go win a division title in the AFC East. All right, next we're going to finish up week 2, our thoughts there, and then come back tomorrow. We're going to talk about all kinds of Monday Night Football and maybe make some grand proclamations about these teams and what we've seen through 2 weeks, what we believe is real, what we believe is not real, but some really interesting scores and some really interesting teams, including what's going on in the AFC North. Next. This episode of Peacock and Williamson is sponsored by Game Time. Game Time has a brand new feature when you're buying tickets called Game Time Picks, and it makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets. And you can imagine how many tickets might be available on the Game Time app when you're going to an NFL football game and there's 40,000, 60,000 seats in a stadium, right? Or you're going to a big concert, a comedy show, whatever it is near you, you can find those tickets at Game Time. And with Game Time Picks, curation makes it easier to find all those seats. You get the view from your seats. You know exactly what it's going to look like when you arrive, and toggle on the all-in pricing feature so you don't get surprise fees at checkout. My favorite feature at Game Time. Download the Game Time app and take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Create an account and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. So the AFC North. One thing I did not see coming, and I kind of want
to division of the league, right?
Yeah, exactly. Worst division of the league. AFC North, best division, NFC South. How about this? I want to tie in the Harbaughs together really quick because don't look now, but the Los Angeles Chargers are 2-0. Now they did play the Carolina Panthers this week, but and the Panthers are clearly 0-2. 26-3 was the final here. Jim Harbaugh is 2-0 for the first time since 2012 in the NFL. And we know he hasn't been coaching in the NFL that whole time. His brother, John Harbaugh, is 0-2 for the first time since 2015. So things going in opposite directions for the Harbaughs, and one might have thought it would be a little bit more difficult for the Chargers version of the Harbaugh rather than the Baltimore Ravens version of Harbaugh. But the Chargers did it again, just like they did last week on the ground. There were plays where you had double jumbo packages and 9 tight ends on the field, it looked like, and they're just running the ball. J.K. Dobbins, 17 carries for 131 yards and a touchdown. And even Quentin Johnson showing up with a couple of touchdown catches in this one as well, which is a good sign for the passing offense, even though Justin Herbert, as kind of a lot of people expected, volume is down in the passing game for the Chargers. That's how they're going to win games. This is a completely new look Chargers team now, and they are victorious. And for John, falling to 0-2 and losing to the Raiders 26-23, you got to start asking some questions about what's going on in Baltimore.
Yep. I have nothing else to add to the Chargers except for their young O-line looked awesome. Alt was really good. Slater was amazing. Zion Johnson, and they just pummeled the crap out of a terrible team.
And it's possible the Panthers are even worse than we expected, and we expect them to be bad.
Really, really bad, like historically bad. I think they play Washington overseas in like 4 weeks. That might be their only chance at winning. So quick AFC North, I'm on doubt in there. Cleveland then went down to the wire in Jacksonville. If they lose that game, the Steelers would have a 2-game lead over the whole division. I mean, that's insanity. So real quick here, though, I think this is noteworthy because Ravens are 0-2, Bengals are 0-2. The Ravens' next 3 games are Dallas, Buffalo, and Cincy. Like, I'm not implying they're going to be 0-5, but I can't see a winning record coming out of that, where Cincy lost 2 really close games. Now they get Washington, Carolina, the Ravens, and Giants. So, like, these 2 teams, despite being at the bottom of the division, are almost in polar opposite spots.
And for the Bengals, say what you want about officiating. There's a lot of fans that think that the Chiefs are getting a preferential treatment. But you take the Chiefs, the Super Bowl champions, down to the wire. You lose on a last-second field goal, 26-25. You feel better about – you never feel good about a loss, but if you're the Bengals, you feel better about that loss, not having, kind of your full power squad that you expected to have coming into the year for Cincinnati. You feel better about that loss than the Ravens feel about losing at home to the Raiders.
The Bengals almost feel like they're T. Higgins away from being 2-0. I mean,
or just Jamar Chase not holding out away from being 2-0.
Yeah, right. Or taking the preseason a little bit serious. And, Hendrickson was awesome coming off the edge. And Baltimore, to me, has more issues than the Bengals.
And by the way,
starts with their O-line.
Speaking of rookie offensive linemen, we mentioned a couple. Alt and Fuaga have looked really good.
Yeah.
Kingsley Suamataia, having some growing pains at left.
He got pulled.
Kansas City Chiefs, and you mentioned Hendrickson having a really good game against him.
As usual, we just brushed over the Raiders, and we hate the Raiders on the show. They probably deserve a little bit of credit for going to Baltimore and winning too. Nice job, Raiders. Minshew played Raiders. Well, and
the star of that game. And again, speaking of rookie offensive lineman, Rosengarten, and he's kind of been coming in and out of the game for the Ravens the last couple of weeks.
They're searching.
They're trying to figure out right tackle. They did not fare well against Max Crosby. Max Crosby was just a game wrecker for the Raiders there, and went along with. By the way, Devontae Adams, 9 catches for 10 yards and a touchdown. So that was great to see.
He'll be fine. Yep.
So we kind of glossed over the Browns too. So the Browns win 18-13 over the Jaguars, and now the my takeaway in this game was more about the Jaguars not looking good the first couple of weeks of the season.
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence, 220 passing yards. The Jaguars fans right now are calling for their head coach to be fired after 2 weeks.
Something is amiss. And Watson played a little better. Let's give him a little bit of credit. I mean, I've been really down on his play. Lawrence has been bad. I mean, it's been 2 weeks in a row where he just doesn't inspire confidence. The organization as a whole, to me, in Jacksonville does not inspire confidence. And I thought this is a game they would get, with the Browns bad at quarterback, not having a dominant runner, no tackles in this game. And Jacksonville worries me. I mean, as an 0-2 team, could they really spiral?
It looks that way. It absolutely looks that way right now. And it's not like the Browns look so good that you could say, oh, man, we just ran into a juggernaut team. And
the defense is good and 4 sacks, but, we know that.
You're at home. Come on, Jacksonville Jaguars. You're at home.
Right.
guy you just paid $200 million to be your quarterback. 18-13 loss.
Yeah.
Can't put the ball in the end zone hardly. Come on.
Yeah. Can't complete 50% of your passes,
All right, take it away. The first place Pittsburgh Steelers.
Look out.
Touchdown, Matt. The Steelers scored a touchdown. 2-0 now, beating the Broncos 13-6.
Denver's pretty bad. I got to say, Denver's pretty bad. And the Steelers got up like 10-0, and it basically fell over. Steelers defense is really good. I do think it is a chance to be the best in the league, and it's right there with a couple of these other powerhouses. The box score actually looks a lot worse, especially for Fields, than he played. There was like 4 or 5 huge plays in this game brought back by penalties, and the stars of the show in a negative way were the refs. I mean, there was just so many flags in this game, and I forget what the crew is, but it's the most most flag throwing crew out there, and it showed. And they even interviewed Fields after the game, and he's like, well, we knew this crew throws a lot of defensive PIs, and the Broncos led the league in DPIs last year, so we thought that might be part of the game, more or less. So they threw some bombs and got some cheap yardage, but Steeler offense wasn't great. Sticking with the rookie O-line theme, though, Frazier's a stud, and this was Fatanu's first ever start, and he was really good too. So rookie O-linemen are stealing the show a little bit.
Yeah, great sign for those teams that have rookie linemen that are able to look like they might be long-term starters in the second week of their careers. I mean, that's huge.
Denver's easily a bottom 5 team, though, maybe bottom 2.
Oh, no doubt.
I
want to go back to what you said about the Steelers, because I didn't watch much of the second half of this game, but in the first half, I was impressed with Justin Fields. I was impressed with George Pickens, and I was really disappointed to look at the box score and see 2 catches for 29 yards for George Pickens, because I thought he's looked awesome the first couple of weeks, and I don't know if the box score really shows. He
had
like
2 amazing plays that were brought back. Yeah. He got the better of Surtain if you watch the tape. Believe it or not.
That was what I came with. I was like, oh man, okay, this is gonna be a tough one because you got Surtain on you all game. And he was up to the challenge, and you don't see it in the box score, but that's a great sign for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, if you watch the game, you're like, oh man, he's taking a step forward. And I'm not saying he dominated Surtain, but I thought he was gonna get shut out. He was much better than the box score showed.
And I don't know if the passing volume is going to be there for the Steelers with Fields or Wilson, or what that ends up looking like on offense. But Pickens is a dude. We're
already laughing. They play the Chargers come here for the season opener next week, and that game might be over in an hour and a half.
Just the amount of points that the Steelers are going to put up this year could be like all-time low for a potential playoff team.
They're just like the Chargers, like you're talking about. Like, you see 14 personnel with the Steelers. Like, that's insanity. Like, they're 30% 13 personnel. They don't even hide it.
It's going to be 9-6 next week.
It's going to be 9-6, and this game's going to be over in an hour.
Bo Nix looks like a rookie quarterback.
He's pretty bad.
It's and we saw this in the preseason and last week too for Bo Nix. Like, with the dink and dunk stuff, get the ball out instantly, and the Sean Payton-y, late career Drew Brees who couldn't throw the ball. Like, just you get the ball out quick. But anytime he has to make a play, make a big throw, it has not looked good. 2 interceptions in this game. He had, when your rookie quarterback has to try to throw from behind and, throws the ball 35 times. That was just disastrous. Couldn't run the ball at all against the Steelers defense. Javonte Williams, 1.5 yards per carry. McLaughlin was 2 yards per carry. And then you have to abandon the run in the first half. So all bad for the Denver Broncos. Don't look very talented on offense. Don't look very talented on defense, save Patrick Surtain. And even he got the best of him in some matchups in this one.
Yep. And so we won't harp on this one, but Nix for the second week in a row is their leading rusher with 30 yards, bad, nothing on the ground going on. Their first 25 plays, Denver created 75 yards from scrimmage. And then they had this throwback flea flicker end around thing and another play that actually was a completion, and they got 75 yards in those next 2, but that was all they did. There was a lot of fluky stuff. And I will tell you, and people that were there, by the fourth quarter or so, the altitude was getting to the Steeler defense. It's just bound to happen. They were running to the sideline for oxygen.
It's a good thing they had that lead early, so they didn't have
if it goes much longer, they might have lost.
A couple more games here. The Washington Commanders defeat the New York Giants. Giants now 0-2. Jalen Daniels gets his first NFL win, 1-1 Commanders, 21-18, the final score there. A lot of field goals.
A lot of field goals.
And the big story is probably Malik
Neighbors. Neighbors had like a 65% target share.
Which is still like not an amazing thing in that offense. 10 catches for 127 and a touchdown, which is great. Makes fantasy owners feel better about Malik Neighbors because of how bad that offense is. But I mean, you look at the Giants here, and you're like, come on, guys, what are we doing?
Yeah. If you can't get this one. I mean, these are two really bad teams too, but there's a couple good things that came of it. But all in all, they'll probably split, and that'll be one of their 4 or 5 wins this year for these teams. They're a long way away.
In the Washington offense, the Cliff Kingsbury thing is just like 2-yard pass, 2-yard pass there. Utilizing Jaden Daniels' legs, and that's
no
fine.
McLaurin at all for 2 weeks. You don't want the Commanders receivers on your fantasy teams for sure. But the running backs you do want, whether it's Robinson or Eckler. They're being used in the passing game, get the quick passes. They're getting the ball out quickly, letting them catch and run. Dual halfback looks at times with Brian Robinson and Eckler. So that's fun at least. Yeah. And that results in 7 field goals. That's kind of like the Steelers last week with 6 wins at all,
I mean, it's all 7. You need some weeks in the NFL, and we've seen a lot of that in the first couple of weeks this season for sure.
This should probably be a Tuesday or Wednesday conversation, but 50-yard field goals are like nothing now. They're like free throws.
Oh, it's insane. Yeah.
It's insane. Yeah.
The Houston Texans improved to 2-0.
Yeah, they're good.
Might have the division wrapped up already, and they haven't even looked amazing the first couple of weeks. They do get by the Bears, though, 19-13. In this game, my big takeaway was if you're a Bears fan and all the things you said about Justin Fields in the past and getting sacked and all this, and then you get a new quarterback, and guess what? He gets sacked 7 times, he gets hit 11 times, and
throws 2 picks.
You're a Bears fan. You're like, can we just have an offense that has some sort of timing going on? And I don't think it's a problem for Caleb Williams necessarily. Obviously, it's the first 2.
But he holds the ball and he doesn't feel it really well. Right. I mean, I heard Greg Cosell talking about this. He's like, everyone to blame USC's terrible offensive line for Caleb Williams always being under pressure. Like, I bet they could recruit pretty well at USC, and it's an issue. His internal clock isn't great, and Stroud's is, and Nico is awesome, and they have a good pass rush, and they haven't been awesome, but I think Houston is a real contender.
They're a real contender, but they're still even at 2-0. They haven't looked as good as I expected them to look, and so I think they will come together a little bit. The defense, though, is where I think the strides were made by the Houston Texans there, and you have Danielle Hunter and
great addition.
Will Anderson coming off opposite ends. I mean, that's awesome. Will Anderson did have a sack and a half in this game. Danielle Hunter had a sack and a half in this game. So, 3 sacks from those 2 guys. And, they've got a lot of guys that fly around and very versatile on the back end of the defense, too. So they're a fun team to watch. Azeez Al-Shaair getting in a fight on the sideline with guys, and he's flying around everywhere. And Jimmy Ward and Jalen Petrie and
Al-Shaair are all over the place.
Yes, and Kamari Lassiter and all those guys can kind of line up and give you different looks on the back end, and physicality flying around. So it's a fun defense to watch for sure.
And Stingley shutting people down too. Right. I mean, it's a good group.
There we go. That is week 2 in the NFL save Monday Night Football. So we will be back tomorrow, and we are going to make some grand proclamations after 2 weeks. We saved it after 1 week, too small of a sample, but I think 2 weeks is a big enough sample where some teams we can claim victory or defeat on our preseason priors. And of course, we'll break down everything we see on the field from Monday Night Football, as well as it is the Atlanta Falcons, which is a team I'm interested to see if they rebound from week 1 where they looked awful. And they are at the Philadelphia Eagles, who look really good in week number 1. So that's the Monday Nighter. We'll have it all broken down for you, and stick around every single day here on Peacock and Williamson and the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for making us your first listen. For your second listen, check out any number of podcasts here. Locked On Dynasty, Locked On Fantasy, the new Locked On NFL Dynasty, and Locked On NFL featuring 1 day a week. My guy, Matt Williamson, as well. And, of course, your team's covered no matter the sport. Back tomorrow, Peacock and Williamson.